The Zodiac Killer. On the night of December 20th, 1968, two teenagers were shot dead in their car on a quiet road outside Vallejo, California. It seemed like a random attack. Police had no leads, no motive, and no suspect. Then the letters started arriving. In the summer of 1969, 3 newspapers across California each received a portion of a handwritten cipher. The sender demanded they print it on the front page. If they refused, he wrote, he would go on a killing spree. He signed every letter with a circle and a cross. He called himself the Zodiac. The letters kept coming, taunting detectives, describing crimes only the killer could know. What made the Zodiac different from almost every other serial killer in history was that he seemed to genuinely enjoy the investigation. He sent detectives coded messages, partial clues, and deliberate dead ends. He claimed in one letter to have killed 37 people. Police could only confirm 5. Investigators worked the case for years. Thousands of suspects were looked at. Hundreds of tips came in. But every promising lead eventually collapsed. One cipher he sent in 1969 was cracked within a week by a schoolteacher and his wife. It contained a chilling message, but no name, no location, nothing useful. A second cipher sent the same year contained what appeared to be his identity, but the letters made no sense. Nobody could crack it. For 51 years, that cipher sat unsolved. Then, in 2020, a team of 3 amateur codebreakers working independently across 3 different countries finally broke it using specialized software. The decoded message contained no name, no address, no identity, just more taunting, even from 50 years in the past. To this day, the Zodiac Killer has never been officially identified. The case remains open. The Golden State Killer. For 12 years, a man terrorized California in a way nobody had ever seen before. Between 1974 and 1986, he broke into over 100 homes. He committed at least 50 rapes. He murdered at least 13 people. He operated across multiple counties, changed his methods constantly, and left investigators completely baffled. What made him almost impossible to catch was how careful he was. He would scout neighborhoods for weeks before striking. He would call victims on the phone days before breaking in, sometimes breathing silently, sometimes whispering threats. He wore gloves. He bound victims with their own shoelaces. He stacked dishes on the backs of male victims so he would hear them move. Police had DNA from multiple crime scenes. They ran it against every database available. Nothing matched. 3 separate task forces were formed across different decades. Retired detectives worked the case on their own time. Books were written. Podcasts were made. A victim's family hired a private investigator. Still nothing. For over 40 years, he was a ghost. Then, in 2018, a genealogist uploaded a DNA sample to a public ancestry website. Investigators took the Golden State Killer's DNA and ran it through the same database, looking for partial matches from distant relatives. Working backwards through family trees, they narrowed the search to a single man, Joseph James DeAngelo, a 72-year-old retired police officer living quietly in a suburb of Sacramento. They collected his DNA from a discarded item and it matched perfectly. He had been a police officer the entire time he was committing the crimes. He knew exactly how investigations worked. He knew exactly what to avoid. He pleaded guilty in 2020 and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The Tylenol murders. In the first week of October 1982, 7 people in the Chicago area died suddenly, and without explanation. The victims had nothing obvious in common. Different ages, different neighborhoods, different lives. Then investigators noticed one thing they all shared. Each of them had recently taken Tylenol. Testing confirmed it immediately. Someone had taken Tylenol capsules off store shelves across Chicago, opened them, filled them with potassium cyanide, and placed them back, perfectly sealed. Completely undetectable until someone opened them. The discovery triggered a nationwide panic unlike anything the country had seen before. Tylenol pulled 31 million bottles from shelves. The U.S. Army helped with public announcements. Chicago police drove through neighborhoods with loudspeakers, warning residents not to take any medication. The investigation was immediate and massive. The FBI, the FDA, and local police all worked the case simultaneously. A man named James Lewis sent a letter to Johnson & Johnson demanding $1 million to stop the poisonings. He was caught, convicted of extortion, and served 13 years. But he maintained until his death in 2023 that he had nothing to do with the actual poisonings. Investigators believed him. The real killer was never found. What the case did change was everything about how products are packaged. Before 1982, medicine bottles had no tamper evidence seals. Within a year of the murders, the FDA mandated tamper-proof packaging across the entire pharmaceutical industry. Every sealed bottle you have ever opened in your life exists because of 7 murders in Chicago that were never solved. The Antwerp Diamond Heist. On the weekend of February the 15th, 2003, thieves broke into the vault of the Antwerp Diamond Center in Belgium, one of the most secure diamond storage facilities in the world. The vault was protected by a combination lock with 100 million possible sequences, a seismic sensor, a Doppler radar, a magnetic field detector, an infrared heat detector, and a private security guard. Getting through it should have been nearly impossible. The thieves had spent months preparing. They rented an office in the building above to study the layout. They made a duplicate key to the vault. They disabled the magnetic field detector by taping a piece of white polystyrene over the sensor. They used a simple light source to fool the infrared heat detector. Over the course of a single weekend when the building was empty, they opened 123 safe deposit boxes and walked out with an estimated $100 million in diamonds, gold, and jewelry. Monday morning, staff arrived to find the vault door standing open. Police recovered almost nothing. Investigators had almost no leads. Then, a detective searching nearby woodland found a bag of rubbish dumped in the trees. Inside was a half-eaten sandwich and discarded packaging with traces of DNA. That single piece of rubbish led them to a man named Leonardo Notarbartolo, an Italian jewel thief who had been renting the office above the vault. He was arrested, convicted, and sentenced to 10 years, but he refused to name his accomplices. The rest of the gang was never identified. And of the $100 million in stolen goods, less than 1% was ever recovered. To this day, the diamonds have never been found. D.B. Cooper. On the afternoon of November the 24th, 1971, a man in a dark suit and sunglasses boarded Northwest Orient Flight 305 from Portland to Seattle under the name Dan Cooper. He ordered a bourbon and soda, lit a cigarette, and handed the flight attendant a note. The note said he had a bomb. He showed her a briefcase containing what appeared to be red cylinders and wires. He demanded $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes. His instructions were calm and specific. The crew followed every one of them. The plane landed in Seattle. The passengers were released. The money and parachutes were delivered. Then Dan Cooper ordered the pilots to take off again, heading toward Mexico City at low altitude with the landing gear down. Somewhere over the forests of southern Washington, he strapped on a parachute, tied the money bag to his body, opened the rear door of the plane in flight, and jumped into a storm in the dark. The FBI launched one of the longest investigations in its history. Hundreds of suspects were interviewed over 5 decades. In 1980, a small bundle of the marked ransom bills was found partially buried on the bank of the Columbia River. No other trace of the money or the man was ever discovered. In 2016, the FBI officially suspended active investigation of the case. It remains the only unsolved aircraft hijacking in American aviation history. Nobody knows whether D.B. Cooper survived the jump, nobody knows who he really was, and nobody has ever come close to finding out. The Gardner Museum theft. On the night of March the 18th, 1990, 2 men dressed as Boston police officers knocked on the side door of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Massachusetts. The security guard on duty buzzed them in. The 2 men handcuffed both guards, taped them to pipes in the basements, and spent the next 81 minutes walking calmly through the museum. They took 13 works of art, including 3 Rembrandts, a Vermeer, and a Degas. The total value was estimated at around $500 million, making it the largest art theft in human history. Then they walked out, and were never seen again. What followed was one of the most exhaustive investigations in FBI history. Investigators pursued leads across 3 decades, tracing connections to the Irish mob, the Italian mafia, and private collectors across Europe. Informants were paid. Deals were offered. A $10 million reward still stands today. Nothing. The empty frames still hang in the Gardner Museum, exactly where the paintings were taken. The museum's founder left specific instructions in her will that nothing in the collection should ever be moved or changed. So the empty frames remain as a permanent reminder of what was lost. The FBI has stated they believe they know who was responsible. They have never named a suspect publicly. No arrests have ever been made. The paintings have never been recovered.